So the nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards just got announced, and there are so many opinions. Lo and behold, to my shock, my debut novel was nominated this year. I didn't know that this was going to happen. My debut novel only came out last month, and I know that the Goodreads Awards, more than any of the other awards in awards season, it's basically just user activity on the website. I mean, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. To my understanding, and based on what Goodreads says, this is all just based on users adding the book to their TBR, rating it. I think the books that get nominated have to have an average rating of over 3.5. They basically pick, for the opening round, 20 books for every category. My publisher is very good at communication, so they will always keep me in the loop about things that are kind of going on behind the scenes, things that they are expecting or whatever. And this was just not something that they brought up. I don't know if they were surprised either about it, or if they just didn't want me to get my hopes up, because the last time I got my hopes up about something, we know how that went. I was very surprised. The other reason I was really surprised was not only because my book had only come out a month ago, not only because it's a book from a non-Big Five publisher. I just didn't realize that we had gotten that much interest or buzz or user activity to even warrant that nomination. It's an honor to be nominated. It's an honor to be nominated alongside some incredible books, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I just realized I never even showed you the book. This is Local Heavens. These are the 3 editions that I have with me. There is one more edition. We have a special edition that is coming out with Fay Crate, and if you're not subscribed to Fay Crate, you can still purchase just the Local Heavens special edition through them. I'll link it down below if you're interested. These are the editions that I have with me. So the paperback, this is the US paperback, which has a metallic finish, and then we have the US hardcover, which is available exclusively through Aardvark, and then we have the UK edition, which is available in paperback and hardcover. And there is a mass market edition that's coming out next year, and that will have a slightly different cover. Not wildly different, but it will look a little bit different. Local Heavens is a queer cyberpunk reimagining of The Great Gatsby. It came out October 14th, and you can buy it now wherever you buy your books. Typically, when I see the Goodreads nominations, none of them really surprise me. I know that people have been very sad about certain categories getting taken out. I would love to see the middle grade category come back, also a poetry category, manga and graphic novel category. But anyways, that's besides the point. A lot of people talk every year about why the Goodreads nominations seem to not represent as many BIPOC authors. Unlike other awards in awards season, there's, to my understanding, no one curating books off the list or things getting cut for any of those reasons. But there's still an interesting discussion to be had. The Goodreads Choice Awards is definitely one of those awards that actually holds some weight in the publishing world. Yes, it's not the Booker, but it is something to the point where publishers will make posts about it. And in the publishing world, the Goodreads Choice Awards is important enough that people care about it and people talk about it, and it generates all this discussion. It can seem there's this notion that because agents, for example, on their manuscript wish lists or editors say they want diverse stories, when it actually comes down to the numbers, there is notably less BIPOC representation. And this really, really comes through when the Goodreads Choice Awards come around. I do think that this is just us looking at Western, shall we say, reader trends, where the books that tend to rise to the top and get the most marketing and get the most publicity end up being the ones that are read the most, and thus are the ones that are added to everyone's TBRs. It's the one that, just generates a lot of activity on the site, which then goes on to be nominated. And so a lot of great BIPOC titles do not get nominated despite being very popular. BIPOC authors kind of get taken out of these discussions. And I know everyone's going to come in the comments and say the Goodreads Choice Awards don't matter, blah, blah, blah. I get it. To readers, it's I don't let Goodreads tell me what to do. But the fact of the matter is there's millions of people that use Goodreads. Whenever Goodreads would feature Local Heavens throughout the year, we probably got, 2 or 3 newsletter features. There's always a huge spike in want to read Goodreads ads. And I'll talk about why I think Local Heavens got the nomination in a second. For so long as people in publishing care about the Goodreads Choice Awards, so long as there continue to be tons of users on this website, this nomination will matter in terms of boosting the visibility of a book. I made a short form video about this, maybe on TikTok or something, where whenever people bring up the fact that many readers aren't interested in diversifying their bookshelf, the counter argument that people always say is, well, I don't see color. I don't see it. I don't check the identity of an author before I read them. Maybe you should. Like, it's not a flex to say I'm colorblind when I read. I understand the premise of like, I'm just going to read a book because it's good. Like, if I hear about a book and I think it's good, I'm just going to read it because it's good. But here's the thing. When BIPOC books are not getting the same level of marketing and publicity, and you are not going to hear about the BIPOC book, you're not going to hear about these other books unless a reader takes it upon themselves to say, I am going to try reading out of my comfort zone. There is some effort that is required on the reader end to care about reading diversely. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you have no interest in reading about experiences beyond what you're used to, that's your prerogative. But I also think that's one of the reasons why publishing is stuck in this like chicken and egg thing. Is it on the readers to start caring and putting their money down, showing that there's a market for it? Or does it have to start with the publisher doing more for BIPOC authors? It is both, because in publishing, like, it's a business, you know? But the thing is, even when there are like breakout BIPOC authors, they're still held up as kind of a token. This one very popular Asian American author, and like, that's enough. If I read one book from them, that means I'm reading diversely. And that's just not how it works. It makes me think like, okay, where do we go from here? The nominations come out and like nobody's ever happy about them. This book should have been on here. This book should have been on here. It's the user activity, right? I do also want to talk about why I think my book got nominated. The first one being that science fiction is not as popular as the other genre categories like romance, romantasy, I would even say maybe horror, and of course fantasy. If you look at like the ratings and stuff like that, a romantasy book will have like 30,000, 50,000 ratings, and I think maybe the most popular sci-fi book in the category is, I'm going to say it's Death of the Author. I didn't check, but I think Death of the Author came out like January of this year. It should have the most ratings, and I think that one is like, I would be shocked if it was like over 20,000. So that's the one thing. I also think that some of the sci-fi books on there, I want to say they probably lean a little bit more literary sci-fi, because that's the type of sci-fi that I think is more widely read. And Local Heavens is a literary sci-fi as well. That's the first reason. Science fiction is a much less saturated category. There are so many more fantasy, romantasy, romance books that are published in a year compared to science fiction. Number two, the reason that I think Local Heavens was nominated was because my publisher did a lot of things to push Goodreads ads. I think that eventually trickled into getting featured in like Goodreads newsletters and stuff like that, which then pushes even more Goodreads ads, and that leads to, you know, more user activity. Every time there would be a giveaway for a Local Heavens arc, or just like any giveaway. I think we did like maybe at least 2 physical giveaways. There was also, I think, when we got Aardvark, the Aardvark book box deal, that pushed Goodreads ads. And there were also a lot of Goodreads giveaways, and every time you enter a giveaway for a book, I think you are like it automatically gets added to your shelf. You know, anytime my publisher did these kinds of things, it wouldn't be just Goodreads. Like Storygraph ads also counted, because we know that a lot of people use Storygraph. And then also, I think my US publisher put the book up on NetGalley, early advanced reader copies. They went up on NetGalley in March. So this book was already getting added to TBRs, and like people were already reviewing it as early as spring. So if I were to guess, that is why Local Heavens, like, you know, got a nomination spot, despite being a queer BIPOC literary science fiction book from a non-Big Five publisher. It is surprising to me that Local Heavens, with all of those factors was able to be a part of this list. And it is an honor. And I do think this is based on just the passion of readers and word of mouth. I know more than anything, this is like a very much a reader award, especially as an author who was told so many times during my querying and submission journey that Local Heavens just didn't seem like a commercial book. Like, I had agents and editors telling me, or we don't know who the audience for this book would be. For me, it feels like such a strange, bizarre, full circle moment. There is, in fact, a market for this book, and there were readers for it. I do think this book is firmly science fiction. It's very, very, very cyberpunk, but I would say it's the kind of sci-fi book that can be read very easily if you are not usually a sci-fi reader. Before I end this video, I want to share some books that I think deserve some love. These are books that came out this year that I really enjoyed. For the fiction category, I would add The Manor of Dreams by Christina Lee. I have such a soft spot. Like, my weakness is any kind of story that has to do with like a revered Hollywood figure. So I love like a tragic actress, like anything about like the entertainment industry, the dark underbelly of the entertainment industry, true life behind the legacy of an old Hollywood star. Love that kind of stuff. And The Manor of Dreams is basically about a Chinese American Hollywood actress. When she dies, there are like two families that are kind of fighting over the inheritance. And so it's this incredibly thrilling, haunting, gothic, literary, horror adjacent, and it's just written, executed so beautifully. For YA fiction, I would recommend Bing Su for Two by Sujin Witherspoon. This is like a YA rom-com that has everything that I love from a rom-com. It's enemies to lovers, it's fake dating. The premise is basically it takes place at a bingsu cafe. Two main characters accidentally go viral. The cafe generates a lot of like online buzz because people think that they're very endearing. People think that they're dating even though they hate each other. I just loved it. I think it was such a well-executed YA rom-com. The one thing that I also really liked about this book is that it's told from the male perspective, and I feel like I don't read that a lot in YA in general, but especially in a rom-com. For the young adult sci-fi and fantasy category, I would nominate The Coven Tendency by Zoe Hanamakuda. I would classify it as horror, but there's a fantastical element as well. The main character is like a witch who perform in like a museum. It's got necromancy. It is such a weird book. Like, it is probably one of the weirdest books that I read this year. And the prose is like some of the most experimental prose that I've seen in young adult. For the fantasy category, I would 100% nominate Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho. Cry Voidbringer is another Bindery book, and I read like an arc of this, I think back in the summer, and it is a true epic fantasy. It is brutal, it is hard hitting, it's really high stakes. It has this like ensemble cast, and one thing that Elaine was talking about at the Bindery fall party this year was how one of the starting points for writing this book was she read The Dictator's Handbook. And that really comes through in like all of the thought that she put into this book. Like, it is so good. And lastly, for the romantasy category, I would recommend This Monster of Mine by Shalini Ibisakara. This is the first in a duology, and I really liked this. Like, honestly, reading romantasy is always like slightly out of my comfort zone. It was like really fast paced. The premise is basically, it's an ancient Rome inspired world, and the main character, it starts off and the main character was like thrown off of a tower years ago, and she is trying to, like 4 years later, figure out who was the person who almost killed her. She suspects that it is like one of the like powerful high judge type people in this world, and she gets assigned to work like under him. I think she is basically a fantasy version of like a prosecutor, but it's a romantasy, a spicy romantasy. And Shalini comes from a law background. Yeah, I think you guys should check out those books. Obviously, disclaimer that as an author, I do become friends with and am acquainted with authors that I mentioned. But with that said, I would never talk about a book or recommend a book unless I genuinely enjoyed it. That's all I wanted to say about this topic. If you want to vote for Local Heavens in the sci-fi category, please do. If you read it and liked it and want to cast your ballot for it, that would mean a lot. If we somehow, by some miracle and a half, are able to make the finalist list, but even if we aren't, I'm just so grateful and honored to be nominated. It was truly, I think, one of the most surprising things that happened this year. Very rarely do I expect anything to happen, but I do think this one was genuinely really, really shocking, and I'm just so grateful to readers for showing up for a queer BIPOC debut. It does mean a lot. That is all. Thank you for watching. Go diversify your bookshelf. You are missing out on so many amazing books. Thank you. Bye.